I beg, before we start this story, let me warn you. If you are the type that behaves anyhow at home, thinking your parents will always cover for you, sit down well and listen. This story is not small. It will shake you. You hear me? Good. Now let's begin. Adana was born into a family that had everything. Not just money, but respect. Her father, Chief Okafor, was a titled man in the village. When he walked through the market, people greeted him with their heads bowed. Igbo, they would call out, even though he was not a king. Her mother, Mama Adana, was the women's leader in church. Every Sunday, she sat in the front row wearing her finest wrapper and head tie, nodding as the pastor preached about raising godly children. But if you ask me, that woman was deceiving herself, because the child she raised, hey, that one was something else entirely. Adana was 16 years old when this story begins, and let me tell you, she was the rudest girl you could ever meet. Not rude in a small way. Oh, rude in the kind of way that makes grown people shake their heads and say, "What kind of child is this?" In their big house, with the high fence and the generator that ran every night, Adana lived like a queen. But not the good type of queen. The bad type. The type that thinks everyone else is her servant. Ngozi, she would shout in the morning, her voice cutting through the house like a knife. "Where's my breakfast?" Ngozi was their housemaid, a young girl, maybe 20 years old, who had come from a nearby village to work for the Okafors. She would rush into Adana's room, her wrapper tied quickly around her waist, carrying a tray. "Sorry, Madam Adana. I'm bringing it now." Madam Adana. You see that? Even the maid had to call her Madam. A 16-year-old girl. Adana would look at the food and push it away. "This rice is cold. Are you trying to poison me?" "No, Ma. I just cooked it." "Shut up. Take it back. And when you bring it again, make sure it's hot. Are you deaf?" Ngozi would take the food and go back to the kitchen, her eyes wet with tears. This was her life every day. Every single day. Now, you might be wondering, where were Adana's parents during all this? That's the painful part. They were there. They saw everything. But what did they do? Nothing. Chief Okafor would hear Adana shouting and shake his head. "That girl in," he would mutter, then go back to reading his newspaper. Mama Adana would try sometimes. "Adana, why are you talking to Ngozi like that? She's not your mate." And Adana would look at her mother with those sharp eyes and say, "Mummy, please, is it not our housemaid? If she cannot do simple work, let her go back to her village." Mama Adana would sigh and walk away. You see, the problem was this: Adana was their only daughter. After her, Mama Adana had 3 sons, but no other girl. So they pampered her. They spoiled her. They gave her everything she wanted and never corrected her properly. In the village, people whispered. Oh yes, village people will always whisper. They whispered in the market. They whispered in church. They whispered at meetings. That Chief Okafor's daughter N, she has no respect. I heard she insulted Elder Chaik's wife yesterday. Elder Chaik's wife? That old woman. Yes-o, called her a busybody, in front of people. When Mama Adana heard these whispers, she would hold her chest and pray quietly. God, please change my daughter. But prayer without action is just noise, my brother, my sister. And Mama Adana was not ready to take real action. At school, Adana was even worse. She attended the best secondary school in the area, the type where children of rich people went. But being in a good school doesn't mean you will behave well. She came late to class every day. When teachers asked her why, she would shrug. My driver was slow. Her driver. You hear that? In class, she slept. Her head on the desk, her mouth open, snoring small. When teachers woke her up, she would look at them with annoyance, like they were the ones disturbing her life. Adana, solve this mathematics problem on the board. Sir, I don't know it. You don't know it because you were sleeping. Sir, is it by force? The whole class would gasp. Even her fellow students knew she had crossed the line. But what would the teacher do? Report her to the principal? The principal would call Chief Okafor. Chief Okafor would come to school with his big car and his big voice, and somehow the matter would disappear. So Adana continued. Rude, lazy, spoiled. But you know what they say. Every day for the thief, one day for the owner of the house. Adana's day was coming. She just didn't know it yet. One evening, something happened that changed everything. Chief Okafor was hosting important guests at home. These were not small people. One was a senator. Another was a businessman from Lagos. Serious people wearing expensive agbada and smelling of money. Mama Adana had prepared everything perfectly. The parlor was arranged. Food was ready. Drinks were chilled. Everything was correct. The guests arrived at 6 p.m. Chief Okafor welcomed them with his big laugh. Come in, come in. My house is your house. They sat down, talking about business and politics. Mama Adana served them drinks herself, smiling and being a good hostess. Then Adana came downstairs. She was wearing a short dress, the type that barely reached her knees. Her phone was in her hand, and she was chatting and laughing loudly at whatever she was reading. Good evening, she said without looking up, without even greeting properly. The guests looked at each other. Chief Okafor shifted in his seat, uncomfortable. Adana, come and greet our visitors properly. She looked up, annoyed. Daddy, I said good evening. Come here and kneel down. Show respect. Kneeling down to greet elders is our culture. It shows respect. But Adana looked at her father like he had asked her to climb a mountain. Kneel down? For what? The parlor went silent. Even the clock on the wall seemed to stop ticking. Mama Adana stood up quickly. Adana, don't embarrass us. Just greet them properly. I'm not kneeling down for anybody, Adana said, her voice loud and clear. This is not the olden days. Then she turned and walked back upstairs, her footsteps heavy on the staircase. The guests tried to pretend nothing happened. They cleared their throats and continued talking. But the damage was done. The shame had entered Chief Okafor's house and sat down with them like an uninvited guest. After the visitors left, Chief Okafor called Mama Adana to their bedroom. He locked the door. For the first time in years, he did not shout. He did not raise his voice. He just sat on the bed and put his head in his hands. I am finished, he said quietly. Mama Adana sat beside him. We have tried everything. No, Chief Okafor said, raising his head. We have tried nothing. We have begged. We have pleaded. We have covered her shame. But we have not disciplined her. So what do we do now? Chief Okafor was quiet for a long time. Then he spoke, and his voice was like iron. "We will send her away." Mama Adana's heart jumped. "Send her where?" "Boarding school. Not just any boarding school. That strict one in the East. The one everyone talks about." "You mean?" "Yes, Graceland Academy. With that house mistress everyone fears. Mrs. Okonkwo." Mama Adana put her hand over her mouth. She had heard stories about that place. How children went in proud and came out humble. How Mrs. Okonkwo didn't tolerate nonsense. How parents sent their worst children there as a last resort. "But she will hate us," Mama Adana whispered. "Let her hate us," Chief Okafor said. "I would rather have a daughter who hates me but has good character than one who loves me but brings me shame everywhere I go." That night, Adana slept peacefully, not knowing that her life was about to change forever. The next morning, Chief Okafor called her to the parlor. She came down dragging her feet, still in her nightgown, yawning. "Sit down," he said. Something in his voice made her sit quickly. "Your mother and I have made a decision. You are going to boarding school." Adana laughed. "Boarding school? Daddy, I'm in SS2 already. Why would I go to boarding school now?" "Because you need to learn respect." "Respect?" She laughed again, but this time it was nervous. "I have respect." "Adana," Mama Adana said gently, "you insulted our guest yesterday." "I didn't insult anybody. I just didn't kneel down. What's the big deal?" Chief Okafor stood up. "The big deal is that you have become a disgrace to this family. Everyone in the village is talking about you. They laugh at us behind our backs. Your teachers complain about you. Our housemaid cries every day because of how you treat her." "Enough." Adana's eyes widened. This was new. Her father had never spoken to her like this. "So because of what people say, you want to throw me away?" "We are not throwing you away. We are saving you." "Saving me from what?" "From yourself." That sentence landed heavy, but Adana was not ready to accept it. She stood up, tears filling her eyes. "You people are wicked. You want to punish me because I didn't kneel down for your stupid guests? I hate you." She ran upstairs and locked herself in her room. She cried and shouted. She threw things. She called her friends on the phone and complained. But nothing changed. 3 days later, Chief Okafor's driver packed her things into the car. Adana refused to come out of her room. Her father had to carry her bag himself. "Adana," he called from downstairs, "if you don't come out, I will break this door." She came out, her face swollen from crying, wearing the same nightgown she had worn for 2 days. The drive to Graceland Academy took 4 hours. Adana sat in the back seat, refusing to talk. Mama Adana tried to hold her hand, but she pulled away. When they arrived at the school gate, Adana looked out the window and felt her stomach drop. The school was not what she expected. It was not some fancy place with beautiful buildings and flowers. It was serious looking. The walls were high. The gate was iron. Everything about it said, "This is not a place for playing." A security man opened the gate and waved them in. They drove through the compound, passing students in uniform walking in straight lines. Nobody was running. Nobody was laughing loudly. Everyone moved with purpose. The car stopped in front of a building with a sign, "Administration Block." "Come down," Chief Okafor said. Adana didn't move. Her father opened her door and pulled her out gently but firmly. They walked into the building, and that was when Adana saw her. Mrs. Okonkwo. She was standing at the end of the corridor, waiting. A tall woman, not fat, not thin, wearing a simple dress and flat shoes. Her hair was tied back neatly in a bun. No makeup, no jewelry except for a small wristwatch. But when she looked at Adana, it felt like she could see straight into her soul. Chief Okafor, Mrs. Okonkwo said, her voice calm but strong. Welcome. Thank you, Ma. Chief Okafor shook her hand with respect. Even he, a titled chief, respected this woman. Mrs. Okonkwo turned to Adana. And this is the young lady. Adana looked away, folding her arms. Adana, Mama Adana whispered. Greet Ma. Adana said nothing. Mrs. Okonkwo didn't look angry. She just nodded slowly, like she had seen this behavior 100 times before. It's okay. She will learn. They went into Mrs. Okonkwo's office. It was simple. A desk, a chair, a bookshelf full of books. Nothing fancy. Mrs. Okonkwo sat down and gestured for them to sit as well. Chief, you have told me about your daughter's behavior. Let me be clear with you. This is not a correctional center. This is a school. But we believe in discipline. Strong discipline. If your daughter is willing to change, she will change. If she is not willing, we will make it uncomfortable for her until she decides to be willing. Chief Okafor nodded. That is what we want. Good. Then there are rules. Number 1, no phone calls for the first month. She needs to settle in without outside influence. Adana's head snapped up. What? No phone calls? Mrs. Okonkwo looked at her. It was the first time she addressed her directly. Young lady, did I ask you a question? Adana blinked. No, but. Then keep quiet. The way she said it, calm but final, made Adana's mouth close immediately. Mrs. Okonkwo continued. Number 2, she will be in Pearl House. That is my house. I oversee it personally. Number 3, she will follow all rules like every other student. No special treatment. Chief, even if you are the president of Nigeria, your daughter will sweep floor here like everyone else. Are we clear? Crystal clear, Ma. Good. Mrs. Okonkwo stood up. You can say your goodbyes. Mama Adana started crying immediately. She hugged Adana tightly. Please, my daughter, behave yourself. We love you. Adana didn't hug her back. She just stood there, stiff and angry. Chief Okafor put his hand on her shoulder. Adana, this is not punishment. This is help. One day, you will thank us. Adana shook his hand off. Never. They left. Adana watched the car drive away, and for the first time in her life, she felt truly alone. Mrs. Okonkwo touched her shoulder gently. Come, let me show you your new home. As they walked across the compound, Adana noticed something. Students greeted Mrs. Okonkwo with fear and respect mixed together. Good afternoon, Ma, they would say, their voices sharp and clear. And Mrs. Okonkwo would nod at each one, sometimes asking, How is your studies? Or did you finish your assignment? She knew these children. She cared, but she was not soft. They reached Pearl House. It was a long building with many rooms. Inside, beds were arranged neatly. 20 beds in one big room. Everything was clean. Too clean. The floor was shining. The windows were open. Not a single thing was out of place. "This is your bed," Mrs. Okonkwo said, pointing to one near the door. "Number 14. Adana looked at the thin mattress and the metal frame and wanted to cry. At home, her bed was big and soft with many pillows. This looked like suffering. "Where's my room?" she asked. Mrs. Okonkwo raised an eyebrow. "This is your room." "No, I mean my private room." "There are no private rooms here. Everyone sleeps in the dormitory." Adana's voice started rising. "I cannot sleep with 20 people. I need my own space." "Then you should have behaved better at home." That sentence hit Adana like cold water. She opened her mouth to argue, but Mrs. Okonkwo raised her hand. "Enough. Your things are in that locker. Change into your housewear. Assembly is in 30 minutes. Don't be late." Mrs. Okonkwo walked away, her footsteps echoing in the dormitory. Adana stood there, shaking with anger and fear and something else she couldn't name. A girl approached her, short, with tribal marks on her cheeks, wearing the same uniform everyone wore. "My name is Kayoma," the girl said quietly. "Welcome to Pearl House." Adana looked at her with disgust. "I didn't ask for your name." Kayoma didn't look hurt. She just nodded. "Okay, but let me give you one advice. Don't be late for assembly. Auntie Mrs. Okonkwo doesn't play with time." "I don't care what she plays with." Kayoma shrugged and walked away. Adana opened her locker. Her clothes were there, but folded differently from how Ngozi used to fold them. Everything looked rough and simple. She changed into the housewear, a plain blue gown that made her look like everyone else. When she looked at herself in the small mirror hanging on the wall, she didn't recognize herself. The girl looking back at her had no makeup, no jewelry, no phone, nothing that made her special. She sat on the bed and put her head down. For the first time since her parents left, she cried. Real tears, not the angry tears from before. These were tears of fear. What have I done? She thought, but it was too late. The gate had closed behind her. There was no going back now. A bell rang loudly. Assembly time. Adana wiped her eyes and stood up. She walked out slowly and joined the line of students heading to the assembly ground. They walked in silence, in straight lines, like soldiers. On the assembly ground, everyone stood in rows according to their houses. Pearl House, Diamond House, Ruby House, Emerald House. Mrs. Okonkwo stood at the front, her eyes scanning the students like a hawk watching chickens. "Good evening, girls," she said. "Good evening, Ma," they chorused, their voices loud and united. "Today we have a new student, Adana Okafor. Stand up." Adana's heart jumped. She stayed sitting. I said stand up. Slowly, she stood. 200 girls turned to look at her. She felt naked under their gaze. "Adana, introduce yourself." "My name is Adana," she said quietly. Louder. "My name is Adana. Where are you from?" "Anambra State." "Good. Girls, make her feel welcome, but not too welcome. She is here for reformation, not vacation." Some girls giggled. Adana sat down, her face burning with shame. After assembly, they went to the dining hall. The food was rice and stew. Simple food. At home, Adana would have rejected it. But here, hunger was stronger than pride. She ate silently, watching how other girls ate with discipline, not rushing, not playing. That night, back in the dormitory, lights went out at 9 p.m. sharp. No warning, just darkness. We sleep now. Adana asked Kyoma, who was on the next bed. Yes, wake up is 5 a.m. 5 what? 5 a.m. morning devotion at 5:30. Adana lay down on the hard mattress, pulling the thin blanket over herself. Around her, she could hear girls breathing, some already sleeping. Outside, she could hear crickets and frogs making night sounds. She closed her eyes but couldn't sleep. Her mind was full of thoughts. Angry thoughts, sad thoughts, scared thoughts. How will I survive here? She wondered. Somewhere in the darkness, Mrs. Okonkwo walked through the compound, checking each house, making sure everything was secure. She stopped by Pearl House and looked through the window at the sleeping girls. Her eyes found Adana's bed. The girl was not sleeping. She was lying stiff, like a board. Mrs. Okonkwo smiled small, a sad kind of smile. Another broken bird, she whispered to herself. Let's see if she will learn to fly properly. Then she moved on, her torchlight cutting through the darkness. And that was how Adana's first day in Graceland Academy ended, the beginning of her real education. Not the type you find in textbooks, the type that teaches you who you really are when nobody is there to cover for you. My brother, my sister, I tell you, what happened to Adana in the coming weeks will teach you that suffering is sometimes the best teacher. But we are not there yet. First, let me show you how pride falls when it meets discipline face to face. Are you still with me? Good, because this story is just starting. The next morning, Adana woke up to the sound of a bell ringing so loud she thought the world was ending. She opened her eyes and saw darkness. Confusion filled her head until she remembered where she was. Boarding school. Around her, girls were jumping out of bed, folding their blankets quickly, making their beds with speed. Adana lay there, watching them like she was watching a movie. Kyoma rushed past her bed. You better get up, oh. Morning inspection is at 5:45. Adana dragged herself out of bed, her body heavy with tiredness. At home, she never woke up before 7 a.m. This 5 a.m. thing was wickedness. She watched how other girls made their beds, folding the blanket in a special way, tucking the corners tight. She tried to copy them, but her blanket kept coming loose. Like this, Kyoma said, helping her quickly. Fold here, tuck here. Before Adana could say thank you, a sharp voice cut through the dormitory. Why is this bed not properly made? Mrs. Okonkwo was standing at the entrance, hands on her hips, looking directly at Adana's bed. Madam, I was just. Remake it. Now. Adana remade the bed. 3 times. Each time, Mrs. Okonkwo found something wrong. Too loose here. Not tucked there. Corner not sharp. By the 4th time, Adana was sweating and angry. The other girls had gone to the bathroom to bathe. She was alone with Mrs. Okonkwo. Why are you punishing me? Adana asked, her voice shaking. Mrs. Okonkwo stepped closer. Punishing you? This is not punishment. This is teaching. If you cannot make a bed properly, how will you do anything properly in life? It's just a bed. Nothing is just anything. Excellence is in small things. Make it again. Adana made it again. This time, she paid attention. She folded slowly, tucked carefully, made sure every corner was sharp. Mrs. Okonkwo walked around the bed, inspecting. Then she nodded once. Better. Now go and bathe. You have 15 minutes. 15 minutes to bathe. At home, Adana spent 1 hour in the bathroom. How was this possible? She grabbed her bucket and soap and rushed to the bathroom. The bathroom was not like the one at home. No hot water, no privacy, just many taps and open spaces. Girls were bathing quickly, water splashing everywhere. Adana stood under a tap and turned it on. Cold water poured over her head. She screamed, "Hey, why is it so cold?" The other girls looked at her and laughed. Not mocking laughter, but the kind that says, "Welcome to our world." She bathed quickly, shivering, her teeth chattering. When she came out, her body was covered in goosebumps. Back in the dormitory, she changed into her school uniform. White shirt, blue skirt that reached below her knees, black shoes, plain socks, no jewelry, no makeup, nothing fancy. At 5:30, they gathered for morning devotion. Songs were sung, prayers were said, Bible verses were read. Adana stood there, her mind far away, thinking about her comfortable room at home. Then breakfast, bread and tea, simple food. But Adana was hungry enough to eat anything. At 7 a.m., classes started. Adana dragged her feet to class, already tired and the day had just started. The first few weeks were hell. Every morning, same thing. Wake up at 5 a.m., make bed. Bathe with cold water. Devotion. Breakfast. Classes. Break. More classes. Lunch. More classes. Prep time. Dinner. Night prep. Sleep. And repeat. Adana tried to rebel. She tried to be the same girl she was at home. But this place was different. One day, she refused to sweep the dormitory. It was her duty day, but she sat on her bed, arms folded. "I'm not sweeping," she announced. The other girls looked at her with pity. They knew what was coming. Mrs. Okonkwo was informed. She came to the dormitory calmly, no hurry in her steps. "Adana, why haven't you swept?" "Because I don't want to." "I see." Mrs. Okonkwo nodded. "Then you will sweep the entire house, not just your section, the entire house. And after that, you will sweep the assembly ground." Adana's eyes widened. "That's not fair." "Life is not fair. Start sweeping." Adana swept for 3 hours. Her arms ached. Her back hurt. Her pride was wounded. By the time she finished, tears were streaming down her face. Not tears of pain, tears of anger, tears of humiliation. But Mrs. Okonkwo was not moved. "Finished?" she asked. "Yes, Ma," Adana whispered. "Good. Next time, do your duty when it is your turn. Discipline saves time." Another time, Adana talked back to a teacher in class. The teacher said something Adana thought was stupid, and before she could stop herself, words flew out of her mouth. "That doesn't make sense." The class went silent. The teacher, Mr. Ease, stopped writing on the board. He turned slowly. "What did you say?" Adana realized her mistake, but pride wouldn't let her back down. "I said it doesn't make sense. What you just taught." Mr. East put down his chalk. "Leave my class." "But..." I said leave. Adana packed her books and left, her face hot with embarrassment. Outside, she stood in the sun, waiting. She waited for 1 hour while the class continued inside. When the period ended, Mr. Ease came out. Go and meet Mrs. Okonkwo. I have already reported you. At Mrs. Okonkwo's office, Adana stood with her head down, while the house mistress listened to the report. So, you insulted your teacher. I didn't insult him. I just said, when you challenge a teacher in front of the whole class, that is disrespect. It doesn't matter if you think you are right. There is a way to disagree. Did you raise your hand and ask respectfully? Adana said nothing. I asked you a question. No, Ma. Then you were wrong. Apologize to Mr. Ease in front of the same class tomorrow morning. What? Apologize in front of everybody? Yes. You disrespected him publicly. You will apologize publicly. I won't do it. Mrs. Okonkwo stood up. Her voice didn't rise, but the authority in it made Adana step back. Then you will kneel outside the staff room for 3 hours. Your choice. Adana thought about it. Both options were terrible, but kneeling for 3 hours in the sun, that was worse. The next morning, in front of Mr. E's class, Adana stood and said, Sir, I am sorry for the way I spoke yesterday. It was disrespectful. Please forgive me. The words tasted bitter in her mouth, but she said them. Mr. Ease nodded. Apology accepted. Go and sit down. As Adana sat down, something small shifted inside her. She didn't like apologizing, but the world didn't end. The class didn't laugh at her. In fact, some girls looked at her with respect, like she had done something brave. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, Adana began to change. Not because she wanted to, but because she had no choice. This place broke down her pride piece by piece. She learned to wake up at 5 a.m. without groaning. She learned to make her bed properly. She learned to bathe with cold water without screaming. She learned to eat whatever food was given. She learned to say please and thank you. She learned to greet properly. She learned to work hard. But the biggest change came one Tuesday evening. Adana was in the dormitory arranging her locker when she heard crying. She looked up and saw a junior student sitting on her bed, tears running down her face. What happened? Adana asked. The girl looked up, surprised. Adana was not known for being kind. My mother is sick. The nurse just told me. Sorry, Adana said awkwardly. She wanted to walk away. This was not her problem, but something made her sit down next to the girl. How sick? Very sick. She's in the hospital. And my father, he doesn't have money for the operation. The girl cried harder. Adana felt something twist in her chest. She remembered her own mother's face on the day she was brought here. The tears, the pain. What's your name? Adana asked. Blessing. Blessing, listen to me. Your mother will be fine. Okay, God will help her. But my father has no money. Then we will pray. Have you prayed? Blessing shook her head. Adana surprised herself by saying, Come, let's pray. They knelt down together by the bed, and Adana prayed. She prayed the way Mama Adana used to pray at home, with faith and fire. When they finished, Blessing looked at her with gratitude. Thank you. Sister Adana. Sister Adana. Not madam. Not senior. Sister. That word stayed with Adana all night. For the first time in her life, someone had called her sister with love, not fear. The next morning, during devotion, Mrs. Okonkwo noticed something. Adana was praying, really praying, not just standing with her eyes closed. Something had shifted. After devotion, Mrs. Okonkwo called Adana aside. "How are you?" Adana was surprised by the question. Mrs. Okonkwo had never asked her that before. I'm okay, Ma. I notice you are changing." Adana looked down. "I'm trying, Ma." Mrs. Okonkwo put a hand on her shoulder. "I know this has been hard for you, but sometimes hardness is what shapes us into something strong. A seed must break before it can grow." Those words settled in Adana's heart. She nodded slowly. "Thank you, Ma." Mrs. Okonkwo smiled for the first time. "You're welcome." That time, Adana's name appeared on the honor roll for good conduct. When she saw it on the notice board, she stood there for a long time, staring at her name. She had never made an honor roll for conduct before. For her, this was bigger than any academic prize. During visiting day, Chief Okafor and Mama Adana came to see her. Adana saw them from far away and felt something break inside her. She ran toward them, not caring if it was undisciplined. "Mummy, Daddy." Mama Adana cried immediately, but these were happy tears. The girl running toward her looked different. Her eyes were clear. Her face was calm. Her body language was humble. They sat under a tree and talked. Adana told them about school, about Mrs. Okonkwo, about how hard it was. But she also said something that made her parents look at each other. "Thank you for bringing me here." Chief Okafor's voice shook. "You are not angry anymore." "I was, but now I understand. I was destroying myself and I didn't even know it." Mama Adana hugged her tightly. My daughter has come back to me." Before they left, Adana asked to see Mrs. Okonkwo. They found her in her office. "Ma," Adana said, "these are my parents." Mrs. Okonkwo stood and greeted them properly. Then she turned to Chief Okafor. "Your daughter is doing well. She is learning." "Thank you, Ma," Chief Okafor said. "Thank you for not giving up on her." Mrs. Okonkwo shook her head. "I don't give up on any child. They just need the right environment to grow." As Adana walked her parents to the gate, Chief Okafor stopped and looked at her. "You know, when we brought you here, people in the village laughed at us. They said we were wicked parents, that we had thrown you away. What did you tell them?" "I told them that one day they will see that sometimes the most loving thing a parent can do is be tough." Adana hugged him. "You were right, Daddy. You were right." That night, Adana lay in bed thinking about everything. 6 months ago, she was a girl who shouted at maids, disrespected elders, and thought she was better than everyone else. Now, she was learning what it meant to be truly strong. Not loud strength, quiet strength. She looked over at Blessing's bed. The junior girl was sleeping peacefully. Her mother had survived the operation. Blessing had told everyone that it was Adana's prayer that saved her mother. Adana didn't know if that was true, but she was glad she had prayed. Outside, Mrs. Okonkwo was doing her nightly rounds again. She passed Pearl House and looked in. When her eyes found Adana's bed, she saw the girl was awake, staring at the ceiling. Mrs. Okonkwo watched her for a moment, then moved on. She had seen this before. The moment when a student finally understood why they were here. The moment when resistance became acceptance. When acceptance became growth. She will be fine, Mrs. Okonkwo whispered to herself. She will be more than fine. And she was right, because Adana's transformation was not finished. In fact, the real test was still coming. The test that would show whether her change was real or just temporary. The test that would come when she finally left Graceland and returned to the world that had spoiled her in the first place. But we are not there yet. First, let me show you what happened in Adana's final year at Graceland. The year she stopped being a student and became a leader. The year she faced her greatest challenge. The year everything she had learned was put to the test. Are you still following me? Good, because the best part is coming. Adana spent 3 years at Graceland Academy. 3 years that felt like 30 years of learning compressed into a short time. By the time she reached her final year, she was not the same girl who had arrived angry and proud. She was now a senior prefect. Can you imagine? The same girl who used to refuse to sweep was now in charge of making sure other girls kept their dormitories clean. The same girl who talked back to teachers was now the one maintaining discipline. But position does not mean the work is finished. In fact, position is when the real work begins. One day, a new student arrived at Pearl House. Her name was Amora, and she reminded Adana of herself 3 years ago. Proud, rude, rebellious, she refused to make her bed. She insulted the other girls. She complained about everything. Mrs. Okonkwo gave Adana a special assignment. Talk to her, she said. Girl to girl. Maybe she will listen to someone who was once like her. Adana found Amara sitting alone on her bed, arms folded, face angry. Can I sit? Adana asked. Do I have a choice? Adana sat anyway. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Adana said something that surprised even herself. I know how you feel. Amara laughed bitterly. You don't know anything about me. You think your parents hate you. You think they sent you here to punish you. You think this place is a prison and everyone here is your enemy. Amara's face changed. How do you? Because that's exactly how I felt when I came here. For the next hour, Adana told her story. She didn't hide anything. She told Amara about how rude she used to be, how she disrespected her parents, how she thought she was better than everyone. She told her about the sweeping punishment, about the public apology, about the many times she cried herself to sleep. But look at you now, Amara said. You're perfect. Everyone respects you. Yes, but respect is not given. It's earned. And it took me 2 years of hard work to earn it. Amara was quiet for a long time. Then she asked, Do you think I can change? Adana smiled. I know you can. The question is, do you want to? That conversation was the beginning of Amara's transformation, and it was the completion of Adana's. Because the true test of change is not how you behave when people are watching you. It's what you do when you're in a position to help someone else. As the year went on, Adana faced bigger challenges. There was a scandal involving some senior girls who were caught sneaking out at night. As senior prefect, Adana was expected to report them. But these girls were her friends. They begged her not to tell. Please, Adana, If you report us, we will be expelled. Our parents will kill us. Adana was torn. She knew what it was like to disappoint parents. But she also knew what Mrs. Okonkwo had taught her. Integrity means doing the right thing even when it costs you. That night, Adana couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned, thinking. Finally, she got up and went to Mrs. Okonkwo's quarters. It was past 10 p.m., but she needed to talk. Mrs. Okonkwo opened the door in her nightgown. Adana, what's wrong? Ma, I need to tell you something. They sat in Mrs. Okonkwo's small parlor, and Adana told her everything. About the girls, about the sneaking out, about the begging. When she finished, Mrs. Okonkwo asked, "What do you think is the right thing to do?" I think I have to report them, even though they are my friends, because if I don't, I'm not being a good prefect, and I'm not helping them either. Mrs. Okonkwo nodded. It's not easy to do the right thing when it hurts people you care about. But that's what leadership is, making hard choices. The next day, Adana reported the girls. They were angry with her. They called her a traitor. They stopped talking to her. For 2 weeks, Adana ate lunch alone, walked alone, studied alone. But Mrs. Okonkwo noticed. One day, she called Adana to her office. "How are you coping?" "It's hard, Ma. I feel like I lost all my friends." "You didn't lose friends. You revealed who your real friends are. A real friend would respect you for doing the right thing, even if they are the one being corrected." Those words helped. And true enough, after the girls served their punishment, extra duties, and suspension of privileges, one of them came to Adana. "I was angry at you," she said, "but my mother told me something. She said a true friend tells you the truth, not what you want to hear. You were a true friend, and I'm sorry I didn't see it." One by one, the other girls apologized. They realized that Adana had actually saved them. If she had kept quiet and they had been caught by someone else, the punishment would have been worse. By the end of that year, Adana had earned something more valuable than popularity. She had earned genuine respect. When graduation day came, Adana stood with her classmates, wearing her graduation gown. Chief Okafor and Mama Adana sat in the audience, tears streaming down their faces. They were not tears of sadness. They were tears of pride. The principal called out names one by one. When he reached Adana's name, he added something. Adana Okafor, best in character and conduct. The applause was loud. Adana walked to the stage, collected her certificate, and stood at the microphone. She was supposed to give a short thank you speech as the best in conduct. She looked at the crowd, took a deep breath, and began. 3 years ago, I came to this school as the worst student you could imagine. I was rude. I was lazy. I was spoiled. My parents brought me here not because they hated me, but because they loved me enough to let me suffer so I could grow. She paused, her voice shaking. I want to thank Mrs. Okonkwo, who never gave up on me even when I gave up on myself. I want to thank the teachers who corrected me with love. I want to thank my fellow students who became my sisters. And most of all, I want to thank my parents who made the hardest decision of their lives and brought me here. She looked directly at Chief Okafor and Mama Adana. Daddy, Mommy, you were right. This was not punishment. This was rescue. Thank you for saving me from myself. By the time she finished, there was not a dry eye in the hall. Even Mrs. Okonkwo, the strong woman who never cried, was wiping her eyes quietly. After the ceremony, as families took photos and celebrated, Mrs. Okonkwo pulled Adana aside one last time. "What will you do now?" she asked. "I want to study social work," Adana said. "I want to help young people like me. Young people who are lost and don't even know it." Mrs. Okonkwo smiled, a full smile this time. "You will be excellent at it, because you understand their struggle. You've lived it." They hugged, a long hug that said more than words could say. Then Mrs. Okonkwo whispered, "Remember, Adana, the real test is not here in this protected environment. The real test is out there in the world. When you go back to your big house with your maids and your comfort, that's when you'll prove if this change is real." "I know, Ma. I'm ready." "Good. Then go and show the world what Graceland Academy produces. Not just educated students, but transformed people." That evening, Adana left Graceland Academy for the last time. As the car drove through the gate, she looked back at the buildings, the compound, the place that had broken her pride and rebuilt her character. She was not the same girl who had entered 3 years ago. That girl was dead. This girl, the one leaving, was new, reborn. But Mrs. Okonkwo's warning echoed in her mind. The real test was coming, going back home, back to the environment that had spoiled her in the first place, back to the maids, the comfort, the temptation to return to old ways. Would she pass this final test? My brother, my sister, let me tell you what happened when Adana returned home. Because this is where we will see if change is real or if it was just acting. This is where the rubber meets the road, as they say. Hold your seat. The last part of this story will shock you. When Adana returned home, everything looked the same but felt different. The big house still stood tall. The gate still opened like it knew important people lived inside. The compound was still wide and well maintained. But Adana was different. She stepped out of the car, and the first person she saw was Ngozi. The housemaid was sweeping the compound, her wrapper tied around her waist, her face tired but peaceful. The old Adana would have walked past without greeting. This Adana stopped. "Good afternoon, Ngozi." Ngozi looked up, shocked. She nearly dropped the broom. Good afternoon, Ma. How are you? How is your family?" Ngozi's mouth opened and closed like a fish. They are fine, Ma. Thank you for asking." Adana smiled and went inside. Behind her, Ngozi stood frozen, wondering if this was the same girl who used to shout at her every morning. Inside the house, Mama Adana was waiting in the parlor. When she saw her daughter, she rushed forward and hugged her tightly. "Welcome home, my daughter. Welcome home." "Thank you, Mummy." They sat down, and Mama Adana just looked at her, studying her face, her eyes, her posture. Everything was different. Softer, calmer. "You've changed," Mama Adana said, tears forming. "Yes, Mummy, Graceland changed me." "No," Mama Adana said, shaking her head. "You changed yourself. The school just gave you the environment." That evening, Chief Okafor came home from work. When he saw Adana, he stopped in his tracks. His daughter stood up immediately, walked to him, and knelt down to greet him properly. Chief Okafor's hands trembled as he raised her up. Welcome, my daughter. Thank you, Daddy. That night, they had a family dinner. Just the three of them and Adana's younger brothers. The atmosphere was warm, full of laughter and conversation. Adana asked about everyone's day. She helped clear the table after dinner. She offered to help Ngozi wash the plates. No, Ma, Ngozi said, alarmed. I will do it. You just came home. Ngozi, at school, I washed plates for 3 years. Let me help you. They washed plates together, side by side. Ngozi couldn't stop stealing glances at her, still unable to believe this was the same Adana. The next Sunday, they went to church. As the Okafor family walked in, people stared. They had heard rumors about Adana being sent away to boarding school. They had whispered about it for months. Now, they were curious to see what the girl had become. After service, Adana did something that shocked everyone. She went around greeting the elders, kneeling down properly, showing respect. She greeted Elder Chaik's wife, the same woman she had called a busybody years ago. Good afternoon, Ma. The elderly woman looked at her with tears in her eyes. Adana, is this you? Yes, Ma, and I want to apologize for my behavior in the past. I was disrespectful. Please forgive me. The woman pulled her into a hug. You are forgiven, my child. You are forgiven. News spread through the church like wildfire. Did you see Chief Okafor's daughter? She has changed. Boarding school really worked, though. That Mrs. Okonkwo must be a powerful woman. But the real test came 2 weeks later. Chief Okafor hosted another important gathering at home. Politicians, businessmen, church leaders. The same type of gathering where Adana had disgraced him years ago. This time, when the guests arrived, Adana was ready. She wore a modest dress that reached her knees. She greeted each guest properly, kneeling for the elders, shaking hands respectfully with the younger ones. She helped her mother serve drinks. She was polite, attentive, and respectful. One of the guests, a senator who had been there 3 years ago, pulled Chief Okafor aside. Chief, is that the same daughter? Chief Okafor smiled, his chest swelling with pride. Yes, sir. That's my Adana. What did you do to her? My own daughter is giving me trouble. I need to know your secret. Chief Okafor didn't hesitate. Boarding school, Graceland Academy, Mrs. Okonkwo. By the end of that evening, 3 other parents had collected the school's contact information. Months passed. Adana enrolled in the university to study social work, just as she had planned. She excelled in her studies, but more than that, she used her free time to volunteer at a youth center, mentoring young girls who were struggling with behavioral issues. One day, she was speaking to a group of teenage girls at the center. She told them her story, holding nothing back. She told them about being spoiled, being rude, being sent to boarding school, and how she fought against change before finally accepting it. The hardest person to change is yourself, she told them, because you have to first admit that you were wrong, and admitting you're wrong feels like dying. But let me tell you a secret. Sometimes you have to die to who you were to become who you're meant to be. One girl raised her hand. But how did you stay changed? Didn't you want to go back to your old ways when you left school? Adana smiled. Every day I'm tempted. Every day. When Ngozi, Our housemaid makes a mistake. Something in me wants to shout. But then I remember Mrs. Okonkwo. I remember how it felt to be corrected with respect instead of insult. So I choose to correct gently. It's a choice I make every single day. That answer stayed with the girls, because Adana was teaching them something important. Change is not a one-time event. It's a daily decision. 2 years after leaving Graceland, Adana received a call. It was Mrs. Okonkwo. Adana. Ma, how are you? I'm well, my dear. I'm calling to ask you something. Would you be willing to come back to Graceland? Not as a student, as a counselor. We need someone who understands these girls, someone who has walked their journey. Adana's heart jumped. Return to Graceland? But not as a student, as a staff member? Ma, I would be honored. And so, Adana returned to the place that had transformed her. This time, she wore not a uniform but professional clothes. She had her own small office, and she spent her days talking to girls who were just like she used to be. Girls who were angry, rebellious, proud. She understood them because she had been them. One day, she was counseling a girl named Chidinma who refused to participate in any school activities. The girl sat in Adana's office, arms folded, face hard. Why should I change? Chidinma asked. My parents are the problem, not me. Adana leaned back in her chair. Can I tell you a story? She told Chidinma her own story. Every detail, every mistake, every punishment, every moment of growth. When she finished, Chidinma was crying. You really understand? Yes, I understand. And I'm telling you what no one told me at the beginning. This is hard now, but it gets better. You get better, but you have to choose it. By the end of that year, Chidinma was a different girl, and she would often tell people, Sister Adana saved my life. But Adana would always correct her. No, I just showed you the path. You walked it yourself. Years passed. Adana continued her work at Graceland. She also got married to a good man who respected her strength and her past. They had 2 daughters, and Adana raised them with a balance of love and discipline, never letting them become spoiled, but never breaking their spirit either. One day, now 10 years after her own graduation, Graceland Academy held a special ceremony. They were honoring former students who had made a difference in society. Adana was one of them. She stood on that same stage where she had received her conduct award years ago. But this time, she was not a student. She was a counselor, a wife, a mother, and a testimony. Mrs. Okonkwo, now older but still strong, presented the award to her. This young woman, Mrs. Okonkwo said to the crowd, came to us broken, proud, rude, difficult, but she chose to change, and now she is changing others. They hugged on that stage, and the crowd erupted in applause. After the ceremony, they sat together under the same tree where they had talked years ago. I'm proud of you, Mrs. Okonkwo said. Thank you, Ma, for not giving up on me. I never give up on any child. I believe every seed can grow if planted in the right soil. And you were the right soil. Mrs. Okonkwo shook her head. No, I was just the gardener. You were always the seed. You just needed the right conditions to sprout. As the sun set over Graceland Academy, Adana looked around, at the buildings, at the students walking in straight lines. at the teachers guiding them with firm but loving hands. She thought about the girl she used to be, the girl who shouted at maids, the girl who disrespected elders, the girl who thought she was better than everyone. That girl was gone, dead and buried. In her place was this woman, this strong, humble, purposeful woman who knew that true strength was not in being loud but in being disciplined, not in demanding respect but in aiming it, not in being served but in serving others. And she smiled, knowing that her story, her shameful, painful, beautiful story, was helping other girls find their own path to transformation. Because that's what a changed life does. It doesn't just benefit you. It benefits everyone around you. It ripples out like a stone thrown in water, touching lives you'll never even know about. My brother, my sister, this is where I end Adana's story. But let me ask you something. Are you the Adana at the beginning of this story? The one who is proud, rude, lazy, disrespectful? Are you the one bringing shame to your parents? Or maybe you're the parent of an Adana, the one crying in secret, not knowing what to do with a child who has refused correction. Let me tell you what this story teaches us. Change is possible. No matter how far you've fallen, no matter how bad your behavior has been, change is possible, but it requires 3 things. First, you must admit you have a problem. Adana couldn't change until she admitted she was wrong. Second, you must submit to discipline, not punishment. Discipline. There's a difference. Punishment is meant to hurt. Discipline is meant to train. Third, you must make the choice every single day. Even after you change, you must keep choosing to be better. And for parents, let me say this. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let your child suffer. Not suffer for suffering's sake, but suffer so they can learn. Chief Okafor and Mama Adana were called wicked for sending their daughter to boarding school. But look at what happened. Sometimes love looks tough. Sometimes love says no. Sometimes love makes decisions that break your heart today but save your child tomorrow. If you found this story helpful, if it touched your heart, if it reminded you that change is possible, do something for me. Share it. Share it with that young person who is lost. Share it with that parent who is struggling. Share it with that teacher who is trying to make a difference. Because stories like this don't just entertain. They transform. They plant seeds. And who knows, maybe 10 years from now, someone will stand up and say, I heard a story about a girl named Adana, and that story changed my life. That is the power of testimony. That is the power of truth. And let me end with the words Mrs. Okonkwo said to Adana. Sometimes you have to die to who you were to become who you're meant to be. So let the old you die. Let the pride die. Let the rudeness die. Let the laziness die. And watch what rises from those ashes. Something beautiful. Something strong. Something that will make your parents proud and make your future bright. Thank you for staying with me till the end. If this story blessed you, like this video, subscribe to this channel, and in the comments, tell me what part of Adana's story touched you the most. Let's talk about it. Remember, no one is beyond change. No one is too spoiled to learn. No one is too proud to be humbled. The question is not whether you can change. The question is, will you? Choose change. Choose growth. Choose to become better. And one day, like Adana, you'll look back at who you used to be and thank God that person is gone. God bless you.